The world's best professional athletes compete in highly organized, fiercely competitive leagues where their skills are rewarded with big money. But it wasn't always this way. For most of the 20th century, professional athletes earned wages about 2 to 3 times that of an average worker. Leagues limited pay and constrained the bargaining power of players. Champion boxers could see huge paydays during title fights, but salaries for the very best in association football or Major League Baseball did not match their market value. Then a generation of outspoken ball players challenged the status quo, and the market for athletic talent began to change. Let's talk about the rise of the millionaire athlete. In part 1 of this series, I looked at pay in sport during the 19th century and explained how the first professional leagues limited pay for athletes and constrained their movement from team to team. But during the second half of the 20th century, it all began to change. In 1961, England's Professional Footballers Association, a trade union led by player-manager Jimmy Hill, threatened to go on strike if the country's football association did not abolish its wage cap of £20 per week. Before the threat was carried out, league officials gave in and did away with the maximum salary policy. Unsurprisingly, the best players, those who made the biggest contributions to team success, started receiving significantly more compensation. Johnny Haynes, captain of the English national team, became the first man to earn £100 per week, and by decade's end, George Best earned the once unthinkable sum of £1,000 per week playing for Manchester United. Pele, Brazil's international superstar, reportedly earned a salary of $144,000 in 1970, but before long, he and West Germany's Franz Beckenbauer would make 3 times that sum. As with baseball, it's important to emphasize the difference between average footballers and elite footballers. The former still had decent, if not eye-popping, pay, but over time, the rising salaries of star players in European football combined with growing competition to acquire the services of the best players lifted all boats. In 1965, the Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series for the 3rd time since 1959, and much of the team's success had to do with 2 men, left-handed pitcher Sandy Koufax and right-handed pitcher Don Drysdale. The hurlers dominated hitters in a way few duos ever have, and they knew their value to the team. So, in the winter of 1966, they jointly demanded $1 million to be divided over the next 3 years. In other words, each man wanted a 3-year contract worth $500,000. Dodgers owner Walter O'Malley refused to negotiate. He knew Koufax and Drysdale had nowhere to go but his office if they wanted to play professional baseball for a living. The game's reserve clause tied them to the Dodgers. Only the Dodgers could trade them. Only the Dodgers could pay them. It wasn't a free market. The veteran stars could have refused to play in 1966, but they did not have the option to negotiate with another team. So the dispute went on for over a month, but both pitchers eventually signed contracts for considerably less than what they wanted. Interestingly, the same year Koufax and Drysdale went on strike, the Major League Players Association hired a respected economist named Marvin Miller, who had years of experience representing the interests of the United Steelworkers of America. In the years ahead, the patient, methodical Miller would mold Major League ball players into a bona fide labor union. He helped negotiate their first ever collective bargaining agreement in 1968 that, among other things, increased the stagnant and shockingly low minimum salary. Crucially, Miller helped players achieve the right to resolve grievances through an arbitration process, which paved the way for future gains. As you might imagine, the owners detested Miller. He was, in their eyes, creating grievances where none existed, and pitting benevolent owners against relatively well-paid players. Curt Flood, an excellent center fielder, challenged the status quo in 1969 when his team, the St. Louis Cardinals, traded him to the Philadelphia Phillies. Flood didn't want to go to Philadelphia. He had a home in St. Louis. His children lived there. He was a veteran star, and yet he didn't have a modicum of choice. So he refused to accept the trade. In a letter to Baseball Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, he wrote, "After 12 years in the major leagues, I do not feel that I am a piece of property to be bought and sold irrespective of my wishes." The owners proceeded to blacklist Flood, and he also lost his legal case, which challenged the legal protections afforded Major League Baseball by the Supreme Court of the United States. Nonetheless, what happened raised public awareness of how many players felt. And Flood wasn't the only player who spoke up about the issue of pay. Jim Bouton's tell-all book, Ball 4, described how teams deceived players and conspired to pay them as little as possible during an era when the minimum salary was just $6,000.
Owners were upset with Ball 4 because it was the first book to tell people how difficult it was to make a living in baseball. It changed, I think what I'm most proud of, I think it changed the perception of how people felt about ball players in terms of, making a lot of money. That they made a lot of money, they didn't. And it showed that baseball players were basically mistreated.
In 1972, the players voted to go on strike, but the biggest victory occurred in 1975 when an arbiter's ruling nullified the reserve clause tying players to teams. Suddenly, marquee players such as slugger Reggie Jackson became free agents and went on to sign lucrative multi-year contracts with new teams. In 1980, the Houston Astros signed fastball pitcher Nolan Ryan to an annual salary of $1 million, a milestone. Between 1980 and 1984, the average salary in baseball more than doubled to $326,000, and rookies did not have to wait for big paydays. Fernando Valenzuela of the Los Angeles Dodgers performed spectacularly during his first two seasons in 1981 and 1982. 10 years earlier, he would have had to wait for a big salary, but thanks to the new arbitration process, Valenzuela's agent could argue to a third party that the Mexican star had increased ticket sales, which he had, and won the Dodgers new fans in the growing Hispanic market. Arbiters agreed, and in 1983 they awarded Valenzuela a salary of $1 million. Something else I should mention is game attendance. Beginning in the late 1970s, the Dodgers started drawing 3 million fans per year. And it wasn't just the Dodgers. Attendance and revenue soared across Major League Baseball during the 1980s. Cable television created lucrative new revenue streams for owners, more fans came to the ballpark, and players represented by savvy sports agents earned more money. The business of sport boomed. What isn't always appreciated about this new era is the fact that most fans loved free agency, or as John Helyar put it, free agency gave fans grist for constant speculation, second guessing, and hope. It sold tickets as new stars arrived in new cities. It increased competitive balance. You also had a new kind of owner, one who wanted to win at all costs and would pay irrationally high salaries for the game's free agents. That competition among owners benefited all the players. Fans of association football would recognize this pattern. Clubs across Europe wanted to win, and that competition for talent led to a marked rise in transfer fees, or the money paid by one club to purchase the contract of a player on another team. Giuseppe Savoldi's record-setting transfer fee of £1.2 million in 1975 seemed absurd to some people at the time. But one decade later, in 1984, Diego Maradona fetched £5 million. And by the late 1990s, the cost to transfer a premium talent exceeded $20 million. In our time, transfer fees are truly eye-popping. Cristiano Ronaldo's transfer fee from Manchester United to Real Madrid was £85 million. And since 2017, transfer fees of £75 million or more are relatively common. Free agency and the movement of players from one club to another has dramatically increased pay for stars and elevated the pay for others. Population growth in the United States has been good for the business of sport. Between 1950 and the year 2000, the American population grew from 150 to 300 million, with most of that growth in the Southeast and Southwest. Major League Baseball expanded to once underpopulated American states such as Florida, Arizona, and Colorado, with the Colorado Rockies setting attendance records during the 1990s. There was strong demand for baseball, both live and on television. Around the world, ticket prices went up, not down, and televised games became more valuable than ever to owners and advertisers. Players made more money, and ball clubs made even more. The market, buoyed by cable rights and eventually digital streaming rights, had become truly massive. At the start of the 21st century, Alex Rodriguez signed a contract worth $252 million, and if you adjust for inflation, no one has surpassed the value of that deal or his highest earned salary with the Yankees. The English Premier League is watched not only by the English, but by millions of people worldwide. Cable television and digital media means the market is global and massive. Elites in the NFL and NBA have salaries comparable to their peers in Major League Baseball, while association football is a bit different. Its superstars are global brands, known by millions worldwide, and 3 players in 2022, Ronaldo, Mbappe, and Messi, each earned over $50 million for their play, alongside millions more from their endorsement deals. And with hundreds of millions of followers on social media, they're worth it to advertisers. We've come a long way since George Wright's first product endorsement, he's the one pictured left, in the 1870s. Professional athletes routinely signed multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts. Fans of just about any sport can follow their team and favorite player thanks to the internet. The 2015 title fight between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. grossed $500 million on a single day, making the two boxers the highest paid athletes in the world. In our age, the world's best athletes compete in a global marketplace, and they're no longer constrained by reserve clauses or below-market maximum salaries. At the same time, the group of well-known, well-paid professional athletes is small. The North American sports market may be valued at $500 billion, but in 2017, the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the median annual wage for the country's 11,800 professional athletes was $51,370. Most of the people who play sports for a living don't get rich. Minor league baseball players make between $3,000 and $4,000 per month. The average WNBA salary is about $100,000. Not a bad income, but not stratospheric. Top boxers make a fortune. But the average pugilist doesn't, and it goes on. Many are called, few are chosen. Prize money in golf and tennis can't go to everyone. The stars on our screens shouldn't confuse us about pro athletes as a group. But it's hard not to be fascinated by the talents or the pay of the world's best. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Subscribe if you like the content and let me know what you think in the comments.